Hi everybody, James Conway here. This week we're talking about twisted tales, and it fits in with your theme this year of Imagine Your Story. So we're not going to talk about the tale like a fairy tale, we're going to talk about more of an animal tale, and how animal tales have adapted over time and changed, and how they've kind of morphed into what they are today. So let's check them out. The first one we're going to talk about is a beaver. So beavers have a very unique tail. And when you think of a beaver tail, you think it almost looks almost flat like a paddle. And that's actually how they use it. So beavers use their tail as a rudder when they're swimming. And they also use their tail as a store for fat in the winter. They'll store a lot of nutrients and energy in that tail. And another thing they'll use it for is actually a warning sign. So if a beaver feels threatened or to alert other beavers that there's danger around, they'll slap that tail down on the top of the water and it'll make a big loud splash, and that'll either scare off predators and alert other beavers that there's danger nearby. The next animal tail we're going to talk about is a fox tail. Now if you look here, I've got a fox pelt, so it's the fox fur, and if you see his tail, it's real thick and bushy. Now what a fox uses their tail for in the winter is actually kind of like a hat and mittens. So they fold their tail over their face and they hold it up there so it keeps their nose warm and, keeps them from freezing. Another way they use their tail is when they are hunting mice and they have to jump up high and jump into the snow and land, they actually use their tail for balance and help kind of guide them into the hole. So let's check it out. The next tail adaptation we're going to look at is one that we don't normally see, and it's one thing we don't see because they always come out at night. So we're going to talk about a possum tail. Now possum are actually North America's only marsupial, and marsupial means that they actually have a pouch that they put their young in, kind of like a kangaroo. So what these opossums do with their tail is it's a long, strong, skinny tail that doesn't have any fur on it. And they actually use it as kind of a rope to hang from trees, and they'll hold themselves up with just their tail. So let's see. The next tail adaptation we're going to talk about is porcupines. Now these guys have adapted to have sharp, spiky quills in their tails and around their bodies. So mixed in with their fur is actually really sharp quills. Now they can't actually throw their quills, that's just a myth. But if you get close enough to a porcupine, they could actually stick you with them. And those quills come out pretty easy, so that's why you see them stuck in dogs and cats sometimes. They kind of get too close and mess with them. So they use it as a form of defense. Now it's a pretty cool adaptation and a sweet twisted tail. The next tail adaptation we're going to talk about is lizards. So some lizards have a tail that when a predator actually grabs onto it and bites it, it'll actually disconnect from their body, leaving them okay and safe from the predator, and the predator will have that tail. So they actually use it as a form of defense, kind of an escape mechanism. This next one we don't have around here, but I think they're pretty cool, and I've actually seen them in real life, and it's pretty scary. So these are actually rattlesnakes. Now their tail has adapted to be like a rattle. And then they actually warn off things and say, hey, I'm about to bite you, and they start to rattle their tail, and you know to not mess with them. So let's check them out. white-tailed deer have adapted over time. Their tails have changed into sort of like a flag. So when a deer gets scared and runs away from you, they'll lift up their tail, which flashes white, and that's a warning sign to other deer that say, hey, it's time to get out of here, let's go. And normally when one deer flips up their tail and runs, they all go. So kind of a neat adaptation for white-tailed deer, and that's where they get their name, white-tailed deer. So let's look at them. The last animal we're going to talk about today isn't from around here at all. It's actually on the other side of the world, but it's a cheetah. Now, cheetahs are the fastest land-moving animal in the world. And one way that they are so fast is they actually use their really long tail as a rudder when they're running, and it helps them keep their balance. So this is a pretty neat adaptation with their tail. And if you watch them run, you can actually see them using their tail as a rudder and helping them change directions. Let's check them out. So that's going to wrap up our Twisted Tail edition of our nature story time. I hope you guys got to see all the different tail adaptations and different ways that animals have evolved over time to kind of suit their needs. And a lot of different tails are used for, hanging in trees and protection, or even if it's just to stay warm, right? So they have a lot of different things they use their tails for, and there's a lot of different kinds of tails out there. So thanks.